Rachel and I'm here today to talk about Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So this is a book that everyone seems to have pretty much read, to be honest, but I only finished it last night, and the reason for that is that when it came out I was only halfway through rereading The Hunger Games, and I decided I was going to continue rereading that and reread Catching Fire and Mockingjay as well, just because I felt like having a kind of reread remembrance of the story would actually serve me pretty well going into this book. So I didn't read it as quickly as everyone else did. However, I have now read it and I wanted to kind of have a little bit of a discussion about this book. I don't think it's going to be very long. It's not really going to be a proper review. It's more just like some thoughts that I had while I was reading it and things like that. So I haven't been reading as many books this year, and I didn't want this book to go under the radar because I haven't really been doing a lot of wrap-ups. I've kind of been doing my wrap-ups together when I have a few books to do, and so I just feel like I will forget a lot of the things I thought about this book in a few weeks. I've got, oh, there it is. I had a piece of hair on me that was so itchy. I wanted to just like sit down and have a little bit of a talk about this because I finished it last night and because I do want to talk about it. This is a prequel to The Hunger Games. There's still one there. Fucking molt like a dog or a cat. It's insane. So this is a prequel to The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games takes place between the 74th and the 75th annual Hunger Games, and this one features the 10th Hunger Games, and so there's around a 65-year gap there. Is it 65? Because it'll be well embarrassing if it's not. Is it 55? No, it is 65. I'm so shit at maths. Anyway, in this we follow Coriolanus, who is President Snow, as his younger self. We basically see him being a mentor to one of the tributes from District 12, who is Lucy Gray-Baird, and we see him sort of have his first interactions with the Hunger Games, his first interactions with government, not that he is governing anyone, but being a part of a governing body, interacting with people who are governing the capital, being an agent of the capital later on, all that sort of stuff. So we kind of see his like roots into the person that he would become later, like career, job prospect wise. So I had really mixed feelings about this book because I have positive feelings in that I'm really glad that this book exists, and I had a lot of thoughts when I was reading it that made me really happy and it made me glad that it existed, but a lot of those tended to be giving me a bit more insight into the Hunger Games trilogy and really enjoying that. And when I take this book on its own, I think it was a very slow book and there were things in it that made it less enjoyable for me. So overall I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, which is actually a really good rating for me. Most average books get about a 3 star, so it's just over average. So I'm just kind of gonna do this in whatever order the thoughts come to me, and the first thing that comes to me is that I think I didn't pay enough attention at the beginning of this book to the descriptions of characters, because in my head Lucy Gray-Baird was very young. She came across as, maybe it's because when you first meet her she is extremely childish. She is like picking on one of her teen enemies, and then she gets on the stage and starts doing a show, and it seemed like this sort of brattish behaviour of a child. I was thinking she was probably between the ages of 12 and 14, maybe like 13. That's probably where I fixed it. I don't know, I've not looked up how old she is actually meant to be. I might do that now. She's meant to be age 16, that's insane. Right, well she does not read as 16 to me. She reads as like 13, and I think she reads as that continually through the book for me. When we moved to her being in the zoo and a lot of interviews going on, I thought she read as really young, how small she is in comparison to all of the other tributes, the sort of belief that she can't possibly win, and I don't know, just in every way I just thought she seemed really young, and so it seemed creepy how much Coriolanus fancied her and liked her. It kind of set me on edge, and so the whole way I never had any sort of like understanding of the relationship that they were developing, because I was like, this is kind of creeping me out. So that's kind of my fault because I just don't think I paid attention. Maybe it said it and I didn't see it. But yeah, she read a lot younger for me, and so that was a big issue. Number two, just a general point, I was never gonna love this book as much as I could another book because there's so many fucking snakes in here and I'm terrified of snakes. Snakes are like my biggest phobia. They freak me out. And so there's so many snakes. Like I thought that, oh okay, there's just gonna be like a few. There was one at the beginning and I was like, oh, so that's the snake in the title. It's not. There's snakes all the time. They're always there and it fucking freaked me out. So that was a thing. That's more a personal thing that won't affect other people, just me, but it freaked me out. One of the things that I really liked was that there is this change in tone the first time Coriolanus hears Lucy sing about, it's not even a boy from, I don't know if she's talking about the boy from back home at this point. She is doing her interview and she starts singing, and it's the first time she is kind of praised in a way that leads no praise back to him as a mentor, them together as a group. Obviously every time she's been praised before that, it's kind of been with him, and so he gets really jealous and he doesn't like that she is getting praise without him, and he feels jealous and he doesn't like that he isn't mentioned. And I loved that. I was like, this tiny insight that's, you know, it's not a huge part of the story, but that is such a perfect character trait of someone like Coriolanus. I can imagine him having that trait, definitely. And so I really liked that that was in there. I thought it immediately linked, I thought it really perfectly linked the character that we were seeing in this to the President Snow that we see later, because I could definitely see him doing that. So I'm looking down a lot because I wrote notes on my phone. So I was like making notes as I was reading it because I thought I'd never remember all my thoughts. And I wrote in capitals with exclamation marks, I thought District 12 never had a winner, what the fuck? And underneath it later I was like, is this because they made her win cheating, so they kind of got rid of it? And it turns out that it is that. We get told later that she's kind of, the game maker lady has kind of buried all of the stuff about the Hunger Games, and there's like one tape of it just so that she can have it, but everything else is buried and not something anyone's ever going to remember. So I was like, oh okay, that makes more sense. One of my favourite things, like I said, was thinking about the Hunger Games trilogy later on while I was reading this, and one of the things I was like, President Snow, when everyone's like, this is the first female who's won the Hunger Games, I bet he was like, this fucking not, I just killed the other one. Like, oh my god. I'm sorry, I'm gonna put a warning at the start of this video that the spoilers, because I haven't mentioned that the spoilers, and I'm literally, yeah, he killed her at the end. So the reason initially I started reading this book and was like, I'm so glad that I reread the Hunger Games trilogy, like straight away, is because we meet Tigress. Tigress is Snow's cousin. She is a fashion person. We meet her, she is lovely, and obviously she is in Mockingjay. She is the person who's had a lot of facial surgery to make them look like a big cat, and she's called Tigress, and they stay with her, and she's into fashion and everything. I think she is a designer for one of the districts, or she had been in the past, and she is just really over the whole like capital thing, and I really liked that she was featured in that, and I was really glad that I'd reread Mockingjay because I never would have remembered her. But I just put, it makes so much sense because she hates the Hunger Games and she hates what it does to her family. She hates what it does to Lucy Greybeard. She's always like, I feel sorry for that girl, blah 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 blah. It made so much more sense why she would support them in Mockingjay, so it was nice having that bit of a background. I also thought it was really weird that he'd been a peacekeeper in District 12. Like, in the first like few pages of him going back to District 12, well, going to District 12, he mentions like the Hob and stuff, and I'm like, that seems fucking insane. Like, he's lived where Katniss is, he's, do you know what I mean? Like, it just felt really strange to know that he'd inhabited and lived in the area that is the area that you think is so far below him, like so far below the capital, he would never even step foot in it. And it's like, no, he genuinely lived there. Like, it just felt really, really weird. I also, one of my favorite hands down things about this book was learning about how Jabberjays mated with mockingbirds to make mockingjays, and how they can set them to record, and just that whole thing I thought was so cool. I loved that Coriolanus hated them, that he thought they went against nature, he thought they were abominations. The thought of him hating them so much and Katniss becoming the Mockingjay, that symbol, it would have made the whole thing with Katniss and that war with the Capitol so much more personal to him in a way that no one else would have ever understood. So I thought that was really, really cool. I really enjoyed reading about that. The scene that proper got me in this book was when he was talking to Cianus. That's kind of how I was thinking that you would say his name. I'm not sure. When he was talking to him and he sets the Mockingjay to record and he doesn't know that he's done it, I was like, oh, that is so cool. I did not see that coming. That's fucking awesome. Like, I just thought it was a really cool scene. As well as having that stuff with the Mockingjays as well, you also have this whole story that the Hanging Tree song becomes. This is a song that was written by the woman he was in love with. She was kind of writing it about someone else, but was she writing it about him? And you know, she was singing it all the time. She was singing it like pretty much when she was dying. And the thought that like him seeing Katniss singing that on the broadcast in Mockingjay, like that would have made his skin crawl. He would have been fucking livid that she was singing that song. And like, oh, like that's the thing that I really got from this book. Like I loved the connections to the Hunger Games stuff. Now, the way that I thought this was going all the way through, and I think it's because I saw Lucy Greybeard as being younger, so I found his liking of her a bit creepy, and I found that I was like, well, that definitely won't be where they're going because she's too young. And she just seemed really manipulative. So I thought all the way through, like, she's got the game in the bag. Like, she knows what she's doing. She's just like fucking manipulative, controlling, like I can sort this mess out myself kind of chick. And so all the way through, I'm kind of waiting for her to like get him. And one of the places that I was absolutely dead set sure it was going to happen is when he goes with the whole little like circus posse. I don't know what they were called, I can't remember. I feel like it sounded like COVID, but I can't remember what it was actually called. He goes with them to like a picnicky type place, and I really, really thought that the minute they had got him away from everything else at District 12, they were going to kill him. And I was dead set on it. I was like, that's definitely what's going to happen. And it didn't. And she ended up being nice. And I think I was disappointed because I felt like her character hadn't gone towards that the whole time. I thought it had portrayed her as being more villainous than she ended up being. However, I found that I liked it a lot better because I don't think President Snow's type of mindset comes across as the mindset of, I've been hurt before, so I'm going to hurt everyone else. So the way that they did it, the way that they had him turn on her because he wanted to further his career, was perfect. That is exactly what he would have done. And so I found it very underwhelming and not really what I was looking for, but at the same time I did really enjoy it. I felt the ending was really anticlimactic because you don't even know if she's dead. You don't see her body. He just kind of shoots in random directions and hopes for the best. I don't know, that felt kind of shit. I wanted to actually like, did she die? I wanted a more personal thing between them as well, a like more personal having it out kind of thing, which didn't happen. Again, I guess Coriolanus would kind of be a coward, so I don't think he would have held up very well in a personal kind of fight. But at the same time, I just think it would have written better. I did love that the end fed back to what we heard from Finnick in Mockingjay when he talks about the people who had bought him to go to bed with, and he talks about the whispers that they told him about Coriolanus and poisoning his enemies. So I thought that the link with that was just going to be the fact that he'd given this girl the poison to go in the arena. So I thought, okay, well that's where it'll link, and then he must have used it later. But the end of this book, you see him actually poison someone, and it's quite a big someone. It's someone who's very important to the capital, and you see him poison him because he's pissed off and he don't like him and he wants rid of him, and that fed really well into that, and I really enjoyed seeing that. It was like the whole book he was kind of building to come into the President Snow that we saw in the Hunger Games trilogy and that we imagined him to be, and I think him poisoning that guy definitely made that switch happen in my mind. I don't know, I really, like I said, everything I've talked about in this review hasn't really been a love for this book. It hasn't been loving this plot, it hasn't been loving these characters, it's been loving what this book gives me in terms of other books. So I don't know how good it can be on that end. I did read it quite quickly, I did enjoy it, but yeah, I wouldn't say it was the best book I'd ever read. There were things that I didn't like. Again, the way Lucy Greybeard was written for me just didn't work. She read really young for me. She also read as a lot more villainous, which made me just expect so many different things to happen that didn't happen in the end. And so all in all, 3.5 stars, because I want to say this is definitely over half. Like, it's definitely a good book, and if you like the Hunger Games, I would highly recommend reading it. It gives so much more understanding of the Hunger Games and of the characters in the Hunger Games. But as a book on its own, as a standalone book to read, I don't know how much I'd recommend it. I don't think it's the best book ever, and I think if you hadn't read the Hunger Games, I don't think it'd stand up very well on its own, because I don't think it actually explains what the capital is and what the different districts are in a very cohesive way. I wouldn't think it was the best book in terms of like actually understanding where you are. I think for me, like, I didn't need to understand that. I already understood it. I'd read the other books, I understood them very well, but I can't imagine that it would have come across very well if you hadn't read the other trilogy and you were just counting on the description in this one. So yeah, they were my thoughts on The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. If you've read this book and you want to tell me how you found it down below, please do tell me if you enjoyed it, if you didn't like it, if it gave you any other thoughts about the Hunger Games trilogy, that would be cool. My just like theorying out of this book to the other books has definitely obviously been my favourite thing, because it's all I've talked about in this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!